The sky above Ketra Prime burned red with the fires of war. Elder Velthara watched from her crystal tower as another city fell to the Korthak invaders. The peaceful Vallani people had never known violence like this. Their beautiful world of floating gardens and singing crystals was being destroyed piece by piece. "Elder, we must evacuate the southern provinces," whispered her aide, Velcrane. His leaf-like skin had turned pale with fear. "The Korthak are moving their war machines toward the healing centers." Velthara closed her large, gentle eyes. The Vallani were a race of plant-like beings who had spent thousands of years growing their civilization through peace and harmony. They had technology that could travel between stars and crystals that could power entire worlds. But they had no weapons. They had no armies. Violence was something they had left behind long ago. "How many of our people have we lost?" she asked quietly. 2 million in the past week alone, Velcrane replied, his voice shaking. "The Korthak take our young ones as slaves and destroy everything else. Elder, we cannot fight them. We do not know how. The Korthak Empire was everything the Vallani were not. They were reptilian warriors who lived for conquest and battle. Their ships were massive and covered in weapons. Their soldiers wore thick armor and carried guns that could melt through solid rock. They had been conquering worlds for centuries, and no one had ever been able to stop them." Velthara walked to the communication chamber at the top of her tower. Inside was the quantum array, a device that could send messages across the entire galaxy in seconds. It was their most advanced technology, created for peaceful contact with other worlds. "Elder, what are you doing?" Velcrane asked, following her. "I'm going to call for help," she said, placing her thin fingers on the control crystals. "Somewhere in this galaxy, there must be warriors willing to fight for payment." Velcrane looked confused. "But Elder, we are a peaceful people. We do not hire soldiers or mercenaries. It goes against everything we believe. Our beliefs will not save our children from slavery," Velthara said firmly. "If we must hire warriors to protect our world, then that is what we will do." She began to compose a message in the standard galactic trade language. The message was simple but desperate. "Help us. Our world is being destroyed by the Korthak Empire. We offer quantum crystalline cores as payment to any who will defend our people. Please, we are dying." The message was broadcast across the galaxy using every frequency the quantum array could reach, but something went wrong. The translation software was old, and the galactic databases had not been updated in decades. Instead of reaching the mercenary guilds and warrior clans that sold their services across space, the message was sent to coordinates marked as hiring posts for soldiers. The signal traveled for weeks through the emptiness of space until it reached a small blue planet in a solar system that was not even on most galactic maps. The planet was called Earth, and its people were called humans. At a monitoring station in Seoul, Communications Officer Park Ji-won was working the night shift when her equipment started making loud beeping sounds. She had been listening to space for years, hoping to hear something interesting. Usually, she only heard the background noise of the universe. "What is that?" she muttered, putting on her headphones. The signal was unlike anything she had ever heard. It was clearly artificial and seemed to be some kind of message, but it was not in any human language. She immediately called her supervisor, Dr. Kim Hyunwoo, who was an expert in languages and codes. He lived nearby and arrived at the station within an hour, still wearing his pajamas under his coat. "This is incredible," he said after listening to the recording. "This is definitely from somewhere outside our solar system. The signal patterns are too complex to be natural." They worked through the night, using every computer program and translation method they knew. Slowly, they began to understand pieces of the message. Words like help, dying, and payment became clear. By morning, they had translated most of the message. Dr. Kim Hyun-woo stared at the screen with wide eyes. "Ji-won, we need to call the government immediately." "Why? What does it say?" "It says that aliens are real. They are under attack, and they think we are soldiers for hire." Within hours, the message reached the highest levels of government. President Choi Min-ho called an emergency meeting with his top advisors. The room was filled with scientists, military officers, and government officials who were all trying to understand what this meant for humanity. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," said Admiral Kang Nari, the head of Earth's Space Defense Forces. "Aliens exist. They are being killed by other aliens, and they sent us a message asking for military help?" "That appears to be correct," replied Dr. Kim Hyun-woo. "The message suggests they believe Earth is some kind of mercenary base where they can hire soldiers." General Park Do-hyun leaned forward in his chair. "What do we know about these aliens? Are they friendly? Are they dangerous?" "From what we can tell, the ones asking for help seem to be peaceful. They call themselves Villani. The ones attacking them are called the Korthak, and they sound very dangerous." President Choi Min-ho was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "How far away are they?" "About 6 weeks' travel using our fastest ships," answered Admiral Kang. "But, sir, we do not have military ships designed for space combat. We have cargo vessels, research ships, and space stations. We are not prepared for interstellar war." "But we could prepare, couldn't we?" the president asked. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what he was suggesting. Earth would have to build a space fleet from nothing and travel to an alien world to fight in a war they knew almost nothing about. "Sir," said Admiral Kang carefully, "even if we could build ships and train, crews in time, we would be fighting an enemy that has conquered dozens of worlds. We could lose everything." President Choi looked around the room at the faces of his advisors. "And if we do nothing, an entire species dies while asking us for help. Can we live with that?" The debate continued for hours, but in the end, the decision was simple. Humanity had received a call for help from someone in danger. It did not matter that they were aliens. It did not matter that it might be dangerous. What mattered was that people were dying, and Earth had the power to help. 3 days later, President Choi made an announcement that would change human history forever. "We have received a message from space. Our fellow beings in the galaxy need our help. We will answer their call." The news spread across Earth like wildfire. Aliens were real, they were in trouble, and humanity was going to help them. In every country, people gathered around television screens and computer monitors to hear the details. Some were excited, some were scared, but most were simply amazed that they were not alone in the universe. Director Yoon Tae-hyung had been waiting for this moment his entire career. For 20 years, he had been running a secret program called Project Starward. The project was created to prepare Earth for the possibility of meeting aliens someday. Now that day had come. "How much time do we have?" President Choi asked during an emergency meeting. 6 weeks to get there, but the aliens said their situation is desperate, replied Director Yoon. "Every day we wait, more of them die. What do we have to work with?" Director Yoon opened his files. "We have been building theoretical space combat plans for years. We have experimental engines that can travel faster than light. We have weapons that could work in space. The problem is putting it all together quickly. Engineer Shin Ariam was put in charge of converting civilian ships into warships. She had designed mining equipment and cargo vessels her whole life, but never military ships. Now she had to figure out how to turn space trucks into space fighters. The cargo haulers are actually perfect, she explained to her team. They are, built to carry heavy loads, so they can handle big weapons. The mining ships have strong hulls that can take damage. We just need to add guns and armor. All across Earth, factories that had been making cars and computers started making weapons and armor instead. Shipyards that built ocean vessels began working on spaceships. Every nation contributed whatever they could. But the biggest surprise was not the technology, it was the people. General Park Do-hyun had expected that maybe a few thousand soldiers would volunteer for the mission. What actually happened amazed everyone. Within 1 week, over 3 million people had signed up to go fight for aliens they had never met. They were not all soldiers. Police officers wanted to help. Firefighters and paramedics volunteered. Teachers and doctors offered their services. Even retired military personnel who were old enough to be grandparents demanded to be included. "Sir, we have a problem," reported Colonel Oh Kyung-sok. "We have more volunteers than we can possibly take. We can only fit about 800,000 people on the ships we are building." "Why are so many people volunteering?" General Park asked. "I have been interviewing them," said Dr. Bae Jae-hwan, a psychologist who was studying the volunteers. "Most of them say the same thing. They cannot stand the idea of innocent people being killed when Earth has the power to help them." This was something that confused the experts. Throughout history, humans had fought wars for many reasons. To defend their homes, to gain resources, to expand territory, or to defeat enemies. But this was different. Humans were volunteering to travel across the galaxy to fight for people they would probably never meet again. Captain Han Min-seo was given command of the flagship, a converted cruise ship that had been turned into a battle cruiser. The ship had once carried tourists on vacation trips around the world. Now it was covered in armor and weapons, ready to carry soldiers to an alien war. "This is insane," she said to her second-in-command, as they watched workers install missile launchers where the swimming pool used to be. 6 months ago, I was transporting passengers between islands. Now I am supposed to lead humanity's first space battle." "Are you having second thoughts?" asked her officer. Captain Han looked out at the space dock, where dozens of other converted ships were being prepared. Each one was filled with volunteers who were willing to risk their lives for strangers. "No. If anything, I am more determined than ever." The fleet that was assembling looked nothing like the sleek warships shown in movies. The ships were different sizes and shapes because they had been built for different purposes. Some were long and thin like the cargo vessels they used to be. Others were round and bulky like the mining ships they had been converted from. They were painted in different colors and had weapons attached wherever they would fit. "Will this actually work?" Admiral Kang Nari asked as she reviewed the battle plans. "Honestly, we have no idea," replied General Park Do-hyun. "No human has ever fought a battle in space. We are making up everything as we go along." "But we do have some advantages," added Director Yoon. "The aliens are expecting professional mercenaries who fight for money. They are not expecting an entire species that fights, because it is the right thing to do." The weapons were as varied as the ships. Some vessels carried missiles that had been designed to destroy asteroids. Others had laser cannons that were originally used for mining operations. A few ships even had old-fashioned bullets and cannons, because those were the weapons that humans understood best. Dr. Kim Hyun-woo continued working on translating alien languages so that humans could communicate when they arrived. He had learned that the Villani were peaceful plant-like beings who had never fought a war. The Korthak were reptilian warriors who had conquered many worlds. "The good news is that the Villani seem friendly," he reported. "The bad news is that the Korthak are very dangerous. They have been fighting wars for hundreds of years. How do we know we can trust the Villani?" asked someone during a briefing. "We don't," admitted Dr. Kim, "but they are asking for help because they are being killed. Even if this is some kind of trick, we cannot ignore people who are dying." As the launch date approached, families across Earth said goodbye to their loved ones. Many people were scared that they might never see each other again, but there was also a sense of pride. Humanity was about to do something that had never been done before. The night before launch, President Choi made another speech to the world. "Tomorrow our ships will leave Earth to help people we have never met on a world we have never seen. We do this not because we expect anything in return, but because it is right. When someone calls for help, we answer." Commander Oh Kyung-sok spent the final hours drilling the crews on space combat tactics that had never been tested in real battle. The soldiers practiced using weapons they had never fired and flying in formations they had never tried. "Remember," he told them, "we may not have the best ships or the most experience, but we have something the enemy does not expect. We are fighting for people who cannot fight for themselves. That gives us strength that no weapon can match." As the massive fleet prepared to leave Earth's orbit, people around the world watched on television. The ships looked small against the vastness of space, but they carried the hopes of an entire planet. Engineer Shin Ariam made final checks on the experimental faster-than-light engines. "All systems are ready," she reported. "We can reach the alien world in 6 weeks. Admiral Kang Nari took her position on the bridge of the flagship. Around her, thousands of other ships waited for the signal to begin humanity's first journey. "To another star. This is Admiral Kang to all vessels," she announced over the radio. "We are not professional soldiers. We are not mercenaries. We are humans, and humans help those in need. Today we go to the stars not as conquerors, but as protectors." The engines fired, and the fleet began to move away from Earth. Behind them, the blue planet grew smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light. Ahead of them lay the unknown, and a species that needed their help. The journey to Ketra Prime took 6 long weeks. During that time, Commander Oh Kyung-sok worked day and night to train the human fleet for space combat. The converted civilian ships had to learn to work together like a real military force. Formation. "Drill number 12, he called out over the radio. "Cargo haulers, you are the heavy hitters. Stay in the back and use your big weapons. Mining ships, you have the strongest armor. You go in first. Transport vessels. You carry our troops to board enemy ships." The crews practiced again and again. They learned to fly their strange mix of converted ships in patterns that would confuse the enemy. They trained with weapons that had never been used in space battles before. Most importantly, they learned to work as one united force despite coming from many different countries and backgrounds. Dr. Bai Jae-wan spent his time studying the psychology of the volunteers. What he found amazed him. "These people are not motivated by anger or hatred," he reported to the command staff. "They are motivated by something much more powerful, the desire to protect innocent people." "Is that really more powerful than revenge or fear?" asked Captain Han Min-seo. "Throughout human history, our greatest victories have come when we were fighting to protect others," Dr. Bay explained. "When humans fight for themselves, they fight hard. When humans fight for people who cannot protect themselves, they become unstoppable." When the fleet finally arrived at the Ketra system, the first thing they saw was the destruction. Several of the smaller planets had been stripped of their resources. Space debris from destroyed ships floated in dark clouds around the system. In the distance, they could see the green and blue world of Ketra Prime, surrounded by Korthak warships. "My God," whispered Admiral Kang Nari as she looked at the sensor readings. "There are hundreds of enemy ships out there." Before they could get closer, a small Volani patrol ship approached them. The alien vessel looked like it was grown rather than built, with smooth curves and a surface that seemed to shimmer like a leaf in sunlight. "Unknown fleet, please identify yourselves," came a voice over the radio. The translator software that Dr. Kim Hyunwoo had built during the journey turned the alien words into English. Ambassador Seo Ji-hoo had been chosen to handle first contact because of his experience with diplomacy and his calm personality, but nothing could have prepared him for this moment. "This is Ambassador Seo of the Earth Fleet," he replied. "We received your call for help. We have come to assist you against the Korthak Empire." There was a long silence. Then the alien voice came back, sounding confused and frightened. "Earth Fleet? How many ships do you have?" 2,847 vessels, reported Admiral Kang. Another long silence. Then the alien ship began moving away from them very quickly. "Wait!" called Ambassador Seo. "We are here to help you. Do not be afraid." "I am not afraid of you," came the reply. "I am afraid of what my people will think when they see you." Volani patrol ship led them to a meeting point near one of Ketra Prime's moons. Within a few hours, a larger and more beautiful Volani ship arrived. This one was clearly important, decorated with crystal formations that caught and reflected starlight. Elder Velthara herself came aboard the human flagship. Ambassador Seo and Admiral Kang met her in what had once been the cruise ship's ballroom. The room had been converted into a diplomatic meeting space, but you could still see where the dance floor used to be. Elder Velthara was unlike anything the humans had imagined. She was tall and graceful, with skin that looked like it was made of living leaves. Her eyes were large and kind, and she moved with the gentle swaying motion of a tree in a soft breeze. "I am Elder Velthara of the Volani," she said, her voice musical and peaceful. "I sent the message asking for help, but I must confess, I do not understand what I am seeing." "What do you mean?" asked Ambassador Seo. "We expected perhaps 12 or 15 mercenary ships, professional soldiers who would fight for payment and leave when the job was done. Instead, you bring nearly 3,000 vessels. Are you an empire? Are you conquerors like the Korthak?" Admiral Kang stepped forward. "We are neither mercenaries nor conquerors. We are humans, and we came because your people needed help." Elder Velthara looked confused. "But why would you travel so far to help strangers? What do you gain from this?" "We gain the knowledge that innocent people are safe," replied Admiral Kang. "That is enough for us." This concept seemed to be completely foreign to Elder Velthara. She sat down carefully in a chair that had been adjusted for her height. "I do not understand. In all the galaxy, species fight either for profit or for conquest. No one fights simply to protect strangers." "Then the galaxy has been missing something important," said Ambassador Seo gently. Elder Velthara began to explain the situation. The Korthak Empire had been attacking Volani worlds for 6 months. They took young Volani as slaves, destroyed cities to harvest resources, and killed anyone who tried to resist. The Volani had no weapons and no knowledge of warfare. "We are a peaceful people," she said sadly. "We have spent thousands of years growing beyond the need for violence. We create beautiful things and share knowledge with other species, but we cannot fight." "You do not need to fight," said Admiral Kang. "That is why we are here." Tactical Officer Lim Sunho presented what they knew about the enemy forces. The Korthak had 400 heavy battleships and over 1,000 smaller vessels. Their ships were covered in thick armor and powerful weapons. They had been conquering worlds for centuries and had never been defeated. "They are professional warriors," explained Officer Lim. "They live for battle and conquest. Their technology is more advanced than ours, and they have much more experience in space combat." Elder Velthara looked at the human officers with concern. "Then you cannot possibly win. The Korthak will destroy your fleet and then finish killing my people. I should never have sent that message." "You were right to send it," said Admiral Kang firmly. "And you are wrong about us not being able to win. But how can you be so confident? Your ships look unusual, and your weapons appear to be improvised." Admiral Kang smiled. "Elder Velthara, the Korthak may be professional warriors, but they have only fought other professional armies. They have never fought humans. What makes humans different?" "We do not fight like professionals," explained Commander Oh Kyung-suk. "We fight like people protecting their families. We use tricks and tactics that no military academy teaches. We take risks that professional soldiers would never take." "But surely experience matters more than determination," Dr. Bei Jae-hwan spoke up. "Elder, throughout human history, professional armies have been defeated by groups of people fighting for something they believed in. When humans fight to protect others, we become unpredictable and dangerous." Elder Velthara was still not convinced. "The Korthak have never been defeated. They conquered the Zethian Empire in 3 days. They destroyed the Morlock defense fleet without losing a single ship." "Good," said Admiral Kang. "That means they will underestimate us." "I do not understand. The Korthak expect their enemies to fight like them, with honor, following rules, using traditional tactics. We are going to do none of those things. We are going to fight like humans." Before Elder Velthara could ask what that meant, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The Korthak fleet had detected the human arrival and was moving to attack. "It appears we will not have time for more planning," said Admiral Kang, standing up. "Elder Velthara, I suggest you return to your ship and move to a safe distance." "What will you do?" Admiral Kang walked to the window and looked out at the approaching enemy fleet. Their ships were huge and dark, covered in weapons and moving in perfect formation. They looked exactly like what everyone expected alien warships to look like. "We are going to show the galaxy what happens when someone calls humanity for help," she said. Elder Velthara hurried back to her ship, but instead of fleeing to safety, she remained nearby to watch. She had to see what these strange humans would do against the most feared military force in the galaxy. War Commander Thekvor of the Korthak Empire received the report of the human fleet with amusement. His reptilian features formed what might have been a smile as he looked at the sensor readings. "These ships are not even military vessels," he told his officers. "They appear to be converted civilian craft. This will be over quickly." The stage was set for humanity's first battle among the stars. War Commander Thekvor stood on the bridge of his flagship, a massive battleship called the Planet Crusher. He was a typical Korthak, tall, covered in thick scales with sharp claws and teeth designed for killing. He had conquered 47 worlds and had never lost a battle. "Report on the enemy fleet," he commanded. "Sir, they have many ships, but they appear to be poorly organized," replied his tactical officer. The vessels are different sizes and types. Many look like converted civilian craft. Their formation is chaotic. Thekfor laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. Amateurs. They probably hired whatever mercenaries they could find. This will be good practice for our new recruits. He was making the first of several fatal mistakes. On the human flagship, Admiral Kong Nari was giving final instructions to the fleet commanders. Remember, we are not trying to fight a traditional space battle. We are trying to save the Vallani people. That means we need to end this quickly. All ships report ready, announced Captain Han Minseo. Begin Operation Thunderstorm, ordered Admiral Kang. The human plan was unlike anything ever attempted in galactic warfare. Instead of forming neat battle lines like professional armies, the human fleet scattered in all directions. Small groups of ships moved toward different parts of the Korthak formation, while others seemed to be running away entirely. "What are they doing?" asked Thekfor, watching the confused movement on his screens. "Are they retreating before we even fire a shot?" "I do not think so, sir," replied his officer. "Some of their ships are still approaching us." Captain Hong Minji commanded the first wave of the human attack. She led 500 small ships that had once been mining vessels and cargo haulers. The Korthak barely noticed them because they looked too small to be dangerous. "All units remember the plan," she said over the radio. "We get one chance at this. Make it count." The small human ships flew straight toward the Korthak battle line. The enemy fired at them, but not with their main weapons because they did not think the little ships were worth the ammunition. This was their second fatal mistake. When the human ships got close enough, they revealed their true nature. Each one was packed full of explosives and guided by a volunteer pilot who had no intention of returning home. "For the Vallani!" shouted the pilots as they crashed their ships directly into the Korthak battleships. The explosions were enormous. In the space of 5 minutes, 12 of the most powerful Korthak warships were completely destroyed. The enemy fleet, which had never lost a ship to inferior forces, was suddenly in chaos. "What just happened?" demanded Thekfor. "Sir, the enemy. Ships were suicide vessels. They sacrificed themselves to destroy our capital ships." Thekfor could not believe what he was hearing. Suicide attacks? What kind of warriors waste their lives like that? The kind that care more about winning than surviving, came a voice over the communication channel. It was Admiral Kang Nari, speaking directly to the enemy commander. "War Commander Thekfor, I presume?" "How do you know my name, human? We know many things about you. We know you have conquered dozens of worlds. We know you take slaves and destroy peaceful civilizations. We know you think you are unbeatable. I am unbeatable. You just got lucky with a coward's attack. Then let me show you what a real attack looks like." The second wave of the human assault began immediately. Marine Colonel Yu Seung-ho led boarding parties in small, fast ships that flew directly at the Korthak vessels. Instead of trying to destroy them with weapons, the humans used something the galaxy had never seen: boarding pods. "Breaching charges ready," called Colonel Yu as his pod slammed into the side of a Korthak cruiser. "Let's show them how humans fight up close." The boarding pods cut through the alien ship's hull like bullets through paper. Human marines poured through the holes, carrying weapons that the Korthak had never encountered: shotguns, grenades, and flamethrowers. The Korthak were excellent warriors, but they were used to fighting with energy weapons at long distances. They had never faced enemies who wanted to fight hand-to-hand with primitive but effective weapons. "Fall back to the command center," ordered the Korthak ship captain as human marines swept through his vessel. "Seal all the blast doors." But the humans had thought of that too. They used explosive charges to blow through barriers and moved through the ship like a flood of destruction. Within 30 minutes, the entire Korthak cruiser was under human control. "Sir, we are losing ships faster than we can count," reported Thekvor's tactical officer. "The humans are boarding our vessels and capturing them intact." "Then pull back and use our long-range weapons," ordered Thekvor. "We will destroy them from a distance where their primitive tactics cannot reach us." This was his third and most fatal mistake. Fleet Coordinator Kim Yoonji had been waiting for exactly this moment. As the Korthak ships tried to retreat to long-range positions, they found that human vessels were already waiting for them. "All asteroid units begin Phase 3, she commanded. The Korthak suddenly realized that many of the human ships that had seemed to be fleeing earlier were actually hiding in the asteroid belt around Ketra Prime. Now they emerged from behind, rocks and debris surrounding the enemy fleet completely. "Impossible," whispered Thekvor. "How did they move so many ships without us detecting them?" "Because we do not fight like you expect us to fight," came Admiral Kang's voice again. "You think in terms of battle lines and formations. We think in terms of ambushes and surprises." The battle became a nightmare for the Korthak. Every time they tried to use their superior technology and firepower, they found human ships attacking from unexpected directions. The humans used the asteroids as cover, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. When Korthak ships tried to group together for defense, human suicide ships would crash into them. When they tried to spread out to avoid the suicide attacks, human boarding parties would capture them. When they tried to retreat, they found more human ships waiting in ambush. Field medic Jang Hyok and his teams worked miracles during the battle. They moved between ships in small medical craft, rescuing wounded humans and even providing aid to captured Korthak soldiers. "Why are you helping them?" asked a wounded Korthak warrior as medic Jang treated his injuries. "We are your enemies." "You are wounded," replied Jang simply. "That makes you my patient." This was something else the Korthak had never encountered: enemies who showed mercy to defeated foes. As the battle continued, it became clear that the humans were winning despite being outnumbered and outgunned. Their strange tactics, willingness to sacrifice for each other, and refusal to follow the normal rules of warfare had completely confused the professional Korthak military. "Sir, we have lost over half our fleet," reported the tactical officer to War Commander Thekvor. "Perhaps we should consider withdrawal." "The Korthak Empire does not retreat," snarled Thekvor. But even as he said it, he could see that his force was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that fought like no one he had ever faced. "Commander, incoming message from the human admiral," announced his communications officer. "Put it through, Admiral." Kang Nari's face appeared on the screen. Behind her, the bridge of her converted cruise ship was busy with activity, but her expression was calm and determined. "War Commander Thekvor, you have two choices. Surrender now and withdraw your remaining forces from Villani space, or continue this battle and lose everything. You think you have won, human? Even if you defeat this fleet, the Empire will send more ships. We have armies that number in the millions." "Then we will defeat those armies too," replied Admiral Kang simply. "And if you send more after that, we will defeat them as well. Humanity does not give up when protecting innocent people." Thekvor looked around his bridge at his remaining officers. They were all staring at him, waiting for orders. Outside, the battle continued to rage, but it was clear that the humans were winning. For the first time in his career, War Commander Thekvor realized that he was facing an enemy that truly could not be defeated by conventional means. The humans were not fighting for conquest or profit. They were fighting for an idea, that innocent people should be protected from bullies, and that idea, he was beginning to understand, was more powerful than all the weapons in the galaxy. The Battle of Ketra Prime ended not with a final explosion, but with silence. War Commander Thekvor sat on his damaged bridge, staring at the tactical display. Of his original 1,600 ships, fewer than 200 remained functional. The human fleet, despite facing a technologically superior enemy, had lost only 180 vessels. "Sir, the humans are requesting our surrender," announced his communications officer, whose scaled face showed the shock that all Korthak were feeling. Thekvor had never surrendered in his life. The Korthak Empire had been conquering worlds for centuries, and defeat was not something their culture understood. But looking at the destruction around him, he realized he had no choice. "Open a channel to the human admiral," he said quietly. Admiral Kang Nari appeared on his screen again. Her expression was serious, but not cruel. "War Commander, are you prepared to discuss terms?" "What terms?" asked Thekvor. "The strong make the rules, and you have proven yourselves stronger." "The terms are simple," replied Admiral Kang. "You will withdraw all Korthak forces from Vallani space immediately. You will return any Vallani prisoners you have taken. You will provide materials and assistance to help rebuild the damage you have caused." Thekvor could not believe what he was hearing. "Those are the demands of a conqueror. If you have defeated us, why do you not take our ships and our territory as spoils of war?" "Because we are not conquerors," said Admiral Kang. "We came here to protect the Vallani, not to build an empire." "I do not understand. In all the galaxy, the victor takes what they want from the defeated. It is the way things have always been. Then, it is time for things to change." Elder Velthera had watched the entire battle from her observation ship. She had seen the human fleet use tactics that no professional military would ever consider, sacrificing ships to save others, risking their lives to rescue wounded enemies, fighting with a determination that seemed to come from something deeper than training or duty. Now she requested permission to board the human flagship. When she arrived, she found Admiral Kang in the converted ballroom that served as the command center. The room was busy with activity as humans coordinated the aftermath of the battle. "Admiral Kang," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "I have lived for over 300 years, but I have never seen anything like what happened today." "What do you mean, Elder?" "The Korthak Empire has conquered 47 worlds. They have never been defeated. Their military tactics are studied by every species in the galaxy, yet you destroyed them using, what would you call it?" Admiral Kang thought for a moment. "We call it fighting for something bigger than ourselves." Elder Velthara sat down carefully. "I need to understand this. You traveled across the galaxy to help strangers. You sacrificed your lives for people you had never met. You showed mercy to enemies who had shown none to us. Why?" "Because it was the right thing to do," replied Admiral Kang simply. "But right and wrong are concepts that most species in the galaxy abandoned long ago. We operate on logic, efficiency, and survival. The idea of moral obligation is primitive." Intelligence Officer Ryu Da-hyun had been listening to communications from across the galaxy during the battle. She approached with a report that would change everything. "Admiral, we are receiving messages from dozens of star systems," she announced. "Word of our victory is spreading faster than light travel. Every species in the galaxy is trying to understand what happened here. What are they saying? Asked Elder Velthara. They are confused, replied Officer Ryu. Apparently no species has ever mobilized their entire civilization to help strangers without payment. The concept of humanitarian intervention does not exist in galactic politics. Dr. Park Sunwoo, the expedition's anthropologist, had been studying the cultural data that the Vallani provided about other species. His findings were remarkable. Admiral, I think I understand why our tactics were so effective, he said. Most species in the galaxy evolved along very different paths than humans did. They either became completely peaceful, like the Vallani, or completely militaristic, like the Korthak. What makes humans different? Asked Elder Velthara. We are both, explained Dr. Park. Humans can be incredibly gentle and caring, but we can also be incredibly fierce when protecting others. Most species see these as contradictory traits, but for humans they work together. That is why your warriors fight so strangely, said Elder Velthara with understanding. They fight with the ferocity of predators, but the motivation of protectors. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Ambassador Seo Jihu, who brought news from the Korthak surrender negotiations. War Commander Thekvor has agreed to all our terms, he reported. But he insists on speaking with our leadership about something he calls impossible demands. Admiral Kang sighed. What does he want now? He wants to understand why we are not taking his ships and territory as payment for our victory. Put him through. War Commander Thekvor's image appeared on the main screen. His reptilian features showed confusion rather than anger. Human Admiral, I have been a warrior for 60 years. I have conquered worlds and defeated armies, but I have never encountered victors who do not claim spoils of war. We told you already. We are not here to conquer anyone. But you must gain something from this victory. Resources, territory, slaves, tribute. There must be something you want. Admiral Kang looked around the room at her officers and the Vallani. Elder, War Commander, what we want is for innocent people to live in peace. That is our only goal. Impossible. No species fights wars for abstract concepts. Then you have learned something new about the galaxy today. The economic implications of humanity's victory became clear when Elder Velthara offered payment for their services. The quantum crystalline cores she provided were worth more than the economies of most planets. They could power faster-than-light travel and provide energy for entire civilizations. Please, she said, presenting containers full of the glowing crystals. Take these as payment for saving our people. Admiral Kang accepted only enough crystals to cover the cost of fuel and repairs for the human fleet. The rest, she insisted, should be used to help rebuild Vallani civilization. But Admiral, protested Elder Velthara, these crystals could make your people incredibly wealthy. You could become one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. Elder, we did not come here to become wealthy or powerful. We came here to help you. The best payment you can give us is knowing that your people are safe. This decision created shockwaves throughout galactic civilization. Within days, representatives from 17 different species arrived at Ketra Prime, all trying to understand what kind of beings would refuse such wealth. The Galactic Council, a loose confederation of advanced species, sent their most experienced diplomat, a being called Consensus Speaker Morthane. He had negotiated treaties between species for over 2 centuries, but he had never encountered anything like humanity. Admiral Kang, he said during their meeting, the Council is very confused by your actions. You have demonstrated military capabilities that could threaten any species in the galaxy, yet you refuse to use that power for conquest or profit." "That is correct," replied Admiral Kang. "Then what do you want?" "We want to go home to our families, knowing that we helped someone who needed it." Consensus Speaker Morthane was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke again. "In 3,000 years of galactic civilization, no species has ever fought a war purely for moral reasons. You have introduced a completely new concept to our understanding of what intelligent life can be. Does that concern you?" asked Ambassador COG Hu. "On the contrary," replied the diplomat, "it gives us hope. For the first time in millennia, aggressive species across the galaxy are reconsidering their plans for expansion. They now know that someone might intervene to protect their victims." As the human fleet prepared to return to Earth, Elder Velthara made one final request. "Admiral Kang, our people would like to establish permanent contact with humanity. We want to learn from you. What could we possibly teach you? Your technology is far more advanced than ours." "You can teach us something we lost long ago," replied Elder Velthara. "You can teach us that being peaceful does not mean being helpless. You can teach us that sometimes protecting innocence requires strength." The transformation of galactic politics had begun. 6 months after the Battle of Ketra Prime, President Choi Min-ho stood before the United Nations General Assembly in New York. The hall was packed not only with representatives from every Earth nation, but also with alien ambassadors from 12 different species. The sight of beings from other worlds sitting alongside human diplomats would have been impossible to imagine a year earlier. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored guests from across the galaxy," President Choi began, "we gather today to establish the principles that will guide humanity's role in galactic civilization." Foreign Secretary Park Chae-young had spent months preparing for this moment. Her new department, the Earth Diplomatic Corps, had been created specifically to handle the flood of alien contact requests that arrived daily. Some species wanted trade, agreements. Others wanted military alliances, and many simply wanted to understand these strange humans who fought wars for moral reasons. "The response has been overwhelming," she reported to the assembly. "We have received diplomatic requests from 43 different species. 3 civilizations have asked us to help them defend against aggressive neighbors. 7 species want to establish joint colonies. And 15 governments have requested human advisors to help them restructure their military forces. Representative Cho Woo-sung had been chosen to represent Earth at the Galactic Council. The Council was an ancient organization that had governed relations between starfaring species for thousands of years. Never before had they invited a species to join after only a single military action. "The Council is very interested in humanity," he reported from the Council chambers on the neutral world of Consensus Prime. "They want to understand how our approach to warfare could change galactic politics." The changes were already visible across the galaxy. The hegemony of Sarthax, a militaristic empire that had been planning to invade 3 peaceful worlds, suddenly canceled their expansion plans. Their reason was simple. They could no longer be certain that humanity would not intervene. "It appears that the mere existence of humans willing to fight for others is changing the behavior of aggressive species everywhere," observed Dr. Park Sun-woo, who had been appointed as Earth's chief xenological advisor. But the most dramatic changes were happening within the species that humans had directly encountered. The Vellani, under Elder Velthara's leadership, began developing their first defensive technologies in thousands of years. They were still committed to peace, but they no longer believed that peace required helplessness. "We are learning to be what you humans are," Elder Velthara explained during a video conference with Earth leaders. "Peaceful protectors, gentle guardians. We will never become warriors like you, but we can become defenders like you." The Korthak Empire, meanwhile, was experiencing something unprecedented in their history. Internal revolution. Exile leader Theknara, the sister of War Commander Thek-Vor, had returned from banishment to challenge the traditional Korthak way of life. "My brother was defeated not by superior weapons or better tactics," she declared to the Korthak High Council. "He was defeated by an idea that strength should protect the weak rather than dominate them." The Korthak civil war that followed was unlike any in their history. Instead of fighting for territory or resources, they were fighting over philosophy. Nearly half the empire supported Theknara's reforms, while the other half clung to their traditional conquest-based culture. "We are seeing the emergence of two different Korthak societies," reported intelligence officer Ryu Dahyun, who had been monitoring the situation. "The traditional empire continues to operate as it always has, but the reformed territories are beginning to experiment with something they call protective warfare, using their military strength to defend others rather than conquer them." Admiral Kang Nari, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, established the Terran Defense Initiative. Unlike traditional military forces that existed to protect their own territory, the TDI was specifically designed to respond to calls for help from across the galaxy. "We learned something important at Ketra Prime," she explained to the new recruits. "Humanity's greatest strength is not our weapons or our ships. It is our willingness to help those who cannot help themselves. The TDI will make sure that anyone in the galaxy who needs protection can call on us." The TDI fleet was different from the improvised Armada that had fought at Ketra Prime. These were purpose-built vessels designed for rapid response across interstellar distances. But they retained the human approach to warfare: adaptability, creativity, and absolute commitment to protecting innocence. Engineer Shin Ariam led the technological exchange programs that were transforming both human and alien civilizations. Earth shared its innovations in adaptive engineering and improvised weapons, while alien species provided advanced propulsion systems and energy technologies. The combination of human ingenuity with alien technology is creating possibilities that neither of us could achieve alone, she reported. "We are seeing advances in medical technology, space travel, and defensive systems that benefit everyone involved. The most significant development was the establishment of the Galactic Protection Accord. Ambassador Seo Jihu had proposed the idea: a voluntary alliance of species committed to defending innocent civilizations against aggression. The accord operates on a simple principle," he explained to the signing ceremony. "Any species that commits to protecting others will receive protection in return. Aggression becomes not just morally wrong, but practically impossible." 37 species signed the accord in its first year. The agreement created a network of mutual defense that made large-scale conquest almost impossible. For the first time in galactic history, peaceful civilizations could develop without fear of being destroyed by their militaristic neighbors. Dr. Kim Hyun-woo, now head of the Xenological Institute on Earth, published his groundbreaking study, Why Humans Fight: The Evolution of Moral Warriors. The research showed that humanity's unique evolutionary path had created something unprecedented in galactic civilization. Most species develop either empathy or aggression as their primary survival trait, his study concluded. Humans developed both simultaneously. This created a species capable of incredible violence in defense of others, but also capable of incredible mercy toward defeated enemies. The study became required reading for diplomats and military leaders across the galaxy. It helped explain why human tactics were so effective and why human motivations were so different from other species. The story reached its climax when Captain Park Ji-won, the communications officer who had first detected the Villani distress call, received another message from across the galaxy. She had been promoted to captain of Earth's primary deep space monitoring station, and her equipment was now capable of detecting signals from thousands of light years away. "Admiral," she reported to Fleet Admiral Kang, "we have received another distress call. A species called the Mordokai are under attack by something called the Void Hunters. They are requesting immediate assistance." Admiral Kang looked at the A message on her screen. The Mordokai were a species of aquatic beings who lived on ocean worlds. The Void Hunters were described as machine intelligences that consumed entire star systems for raw materials. "How far away are they?" she asked. 3 weeks at maximum speed using our new drives. And how many ships can we have ready to leave?" "In 24 hours?" Captain Park consulted her database. 4,000 vessels, Admiral. The TDI Rapid Response Fleet, plus volunteer ships from Earth and our allied species. Admiral Kang nodded. "Send the reply. Tell the Mordokai that help is on the way." As the message was transmitted across the galaxy, Admiral Kang reflected on how much had changed since that first desperate call for help. Humanity had discovered that they were not alone in the universe, but more importantly, the universe had discovered that someone was finally willing to answer when innocence called for help. The Galactic Protection Accord was now the dominant force in interstellar politics. Aggressive empires found themselves isolated and outnumbered by species committed to mutual defense. Peaceful civilizations could focus on art, science, and exploration instead of constantly preparing for war. The message that had once seemed like a mistake, aliens calling humanity for help, had become the foundation of a new kind of galactic civilization, one where strength served justice, where power protected the powerless, and where the strong had a moral obligation to defend those who could not defend themselves. As the TDI fleet prepared for another mission to help strangers in a distant star system, Admiral Kang knew that humanity had found its true purpose among the stars. They were not conquerors or merchants or explorers. They were protectors, and in a galaxy that had forgotten what protection meant, that made them the most important species of all. The final transmission to the Mordokai was simple, but carried the weight of humanity's commitment to galactic justice. "This is Earth Defense Command. We have received your call for help. An Armada is on the way." Once again, humanity would answer the call.